Welcome to ProPractice, your guide to piano mastery. I'm Josh Wright, and today's episode is based on the Chopin Étude, Op.25 No. 10, often referred to as the Octaves Étude. And I'll just play a few bars of this so you can remember what it sounds like. Today, I've listed at the top of this page about 12 or 13 different tips that are going to help you play with efficiency. This is a very tiring piece if you don't use the right methods. One thing that I was just reminded of right now, as you can tell I'm slightly out of breath, I have to always remember to breathe. So one of the first tips you could use is humming. You might be able to hear it on that microphone since it's pointing at my mouth, but I can tell you, if someone was even sitting 2 feet away, they wouldn't be able to hear it because the piano's rumbling. We're going to also discuss that middle section and some possible variations on how you can shape that section differently because it repeats so many different times. So the first thing, let's just dive right into all these different concepts that we're going to go over. The first thing is bench position. I have pretty long arms, and I like to be kind of above the keys. And now, I'm not saying I want to be like way up here to the point that I'm pointed down, but I want to have maybe a right angle. Maybe this is just a touch high, somewhere like that. But I don't like to be down low like this. There are people that have short arms that like to be really low like this, but generally I like at least a right angle, and here I'm sagging down below that, okay? The next thing that I like to discuss with octaves, and this mostly just came through observation of really wonderful pianists over the years, when you're playing octaves, it's very hard to play effective octaves down here when your hand is almost touching these white keys, because when you're going in and out, you can run into these white keys here, and you don't have enough clearance. Also, getting in and out of the white keys up here on your fingers, that's very helpful to have a slightly higher wrist. I'm not saying way up here. I don't want you to lock into a weird position, but I want just slightly higher wrist. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is a very helpful method that was taught to me by one of Babayan's students. Her name is Elizabeth Schumann. Absolutely astounding pianist, and she plays Erlking, the Erlkönig, I don't know how to say that in German, but the Schubert List transcription, lightning fast, as good as any pianist I've ever heard play that. And she said that this was one of the most helpful exercises for her. Okay, so what you do is you do an arm staccato, and then you do a wrist staccato, and then you mostly do it with fingers. Obviously you got to have a little bit of wrist going on because it's very awkward to just grab that. You don't want that. But we're going to keep it really close. So we're going to do these exaggerated motions, and I'd probably recommend starting hands alone when you do this, but okay, this is teaching us to drop very naturally. And you might think, oh, this is kind of a weird motion, but again, we're just trying to get an over-exaggerated motion, and then we'll go to the wrist next. Okay, I don't want you to worry about voicing quite yet. Now you might think, well, why aren't you teaching it that way? Because we're going to have to voice later, but I want you to get the physical mechanism loose before we start worrying about voicing, because voicing can often cause a student to unnecessarily tense up. Okay, so the next step is just kind of crawling along these keys. And you'll notice that if you have big enough hands, using 4 on the black keys is actually very helpful. Now, I don't really recommend that when you're doing like lots of repeated octaves. I did this for many years, and that puts my hand in such a tense position. So I think 5s for repeated octaves, like in the Liszt Rhapsody No. 6. can really help. But I think I would go to the 5s there. This isn't an issue here, but I did want to throw that in as a side note. Okay, so you can use the 4s and the 5s. The other reason I love using 4s and 5s, it gives me a little bit more of a connection. Anyone who watches this channel knows that it's no secret that I'm a huge Daniel Trifonov fan, and I remember watching him play these. Actually, I think it was one of his first performances of these in the Arthur Rubinstein competition with Babayan on Babayan's laptop after a lesson that I was in Cleveland for at his academy. And it was a very special experience to be able to watch Daniel, who went on to win the competition, competing and watching with his teacher, who Babayan had been teaching that whole day. All of us, scrubs, we nothing compared to Daniel, but he had been teaching that day, and then he said, "Oh, I want to go watch Daniel's round that he just played," and watching him, and he was just. Babayan himself is in amazement at Daniel's technique and facility. Not that Babayan is inferior in any way. I mean, Babayan's the master. He's Daniel's teacher. But it was an amazing experience. And one of the really amazing things that Daniel did in that set of etudes is he made them sound like an entire set. So he didn't just start out, "Oh, this is an etude, this is an exercise." Chopin really elevated the etude to a concert piece. So you want to be very expressive. So one thing that Daniel did, and this is going back to like the third step of that exercise, is just kind of crawling along these keys. So okay, and one of the other reasons it sounds great from an expressive standpoint, which is the most important part, is making music out of this, but it also helps to save energy. Okay, so when I've taught this to students, a lot of times students will just come in and they'll play, and then they're out of energy and out of breath by the time they get to here. Okay, so I would start. See, I'm not out of breath this time because I was humming as well. So along with these other methods, that really helps. Let's talk a little bit about expression, then we'll keep going with these other tips and that I've written down here, little exercises that you can use to get your octaves better. So one of the things that I would suggest is, so kind of feel a little swell, then go. Okay, so they're each building by level. Now, level 4 does not have to be forte. You don't want to be forte by there because you still have a long way. You still have 2 more bars to go until you reach that fortissimo. So I'd probably only be mezzo piano and then start less again. Okay, and definitely observe those forzandos because they're integral to the rhythmic tension that Chopin writes. He's not writing. That would sound very natural. That's like kind of a natural thing to do, is just start accenting those. He wants the opposite. And it causes that weird feeling at the end when you go back to the downbeat, accenting the downbeat with those other accents that he puts. Okay, so save your energy, and even if you got a little bit too loud at the end of bar 2, let's say, start again really soft. Whoops. The next concept that I want to discuss that will help you play way more loosely and save a lot of your energy is something that I actually